after yesterday's efforts, we've got all of this clad with this dodo mat stuff. Well, it's not actually dodo mat, but it's the same kind of thing. It's self-adhesive, sound deadening, U-rated, so it's got insulation properties, reflective coated, 6mm thick material. And I've read really good things about this. And I've watched various different tests where they've tested the temperature of this. We're just using cheap bubble insulation and various other things, and this stuff turns out it seems to be the best, at least in comparison with the thickness that you use. So what we've done, you'll have seen on the time lapse, I've stuffed all of the thick areas. So like this area here has got 2 inches of kingspan behind it. All the holes I have literally stuffed full of recycled bubble insulation. You can't really see it anyway now because I've covered it over everywhere. And surprisingly, it took 5 meters, went just in the holes at the back section of this, which really surprised me actually. And then we've clad it with this stuff. So now I'm going to try and get the trim back on in these areas. It seems a little bit pointless really, because I am cladding this with some units. So I am maybe making a bit of unnecessary work for myself, but I don't know, it just seems a little bit of a better way to do it. When you look inside the units, it's all going to be factory trim. I could carpet line it, I guess, but I don't know. I'm going to stick to my guns. I'm going to put the trim back on. Now, the centre section, I have formulated a plan. So I've begun cladding it with this stuff, and I've taping all the joints. Now, where we have the skylights, I'm going to make a timber frame with the correct corner mouldings and everything, an 18mm frame that's going to go inside that. Now the main reason, there's a couple of reasons I'm doing that, but the main one is that it's going to give me an edge that's proud of this, which means I'll be able to get a nice finish when I four-way stretch carpet up to it, rather than the four-way stretch ending here and having to try and neaten that up somehow around the edges, which never works well, and cutting a nice neat curve in four-way stretch and then leaving the edge exposed just isn't very good. So I'm going to put a trim around it which I can carpet stretch up to, and then so obviously we still need to do something with the windows, because obviously all the heat is going to escape out of there. Even though, that said, lining it like this in such a small vehicle is going to make a big difference, because even on a cold night, once you've got a person in such a small enclosed space, the body heat from that person alone is going to heat this up. Now yes, a lot of it's going to escape out the window, so we have got to make insulative blinds. Insulative, is that even a word? For the windows. But what I'm thinking is, once I've made this timber trim, I've got a couple of options. One is to then, I've got a nice neat hard edge which I can then make some sort of a panel, maybe using really thin kingspan or something, which I can then carpet line, which will then push into that nice and neatly. That's one option. But what I'd like to do is try and find some kind of thermal blind that I can attach to these timber frames, like a thermal roller blind with like a reflective backing. I'm sure I've seen them before, and if not, I'm going to see if I can find some kind of reflective backed material that I can maybe make some roller blinds. We'll see. It's at the moment it's just an idea, or possibly a reflective backed fabric which I could maybe attach for press studs or something, or magnets to this trim that I put in, which I'd really like it to be the roller blind thing. I think that would look really swish and it would have that really nice factory feel. But there are other options, but I'm definitely going to clad the windows with some kind of insulating surface, and also it'll keep the light out. So no, it doesn't bother me, but some people can't sleep with a bit of light coming through a window. So that's that. Now before I do all that, once I've got all of this lined, I'm going and the trim's made, I'm going to carpet stretch up to this, and then I can put all these other trims back on. I'm not 100% sure yet what I'm going to do with this area where you have this like little load thing, because there's a lot to try and clad with the Dodo and then still be able to operate this properly. So I'm not sure. I'm thinking maybe I'll just take this off and line the ceiling, four-way stretch the ceiling as neat as I can up to the edge, and then put this back on before attaching it all. Realistically, all of this, now it's stuffed with insulation behind it, and you can just tell from the feel of the temperature. I wish I'd bought my flipping thermal infrared temperature thermometer, that's the word. You can tell by the feel of the temperature of this piece here compared to the temperature. That was the dog sneezing. I wonder what that noise was. Compared to the temperature of this bit. This bit is cold to the touch, whereas this bit isn't, because this isn't on the outside air. So really, I think it's just this section, the ceiling panel, that needs insulating, and then by the time the rest of the luggage arrangement is on there, I don't think there's much to worry about. But I'll work out that bit when I get to it. But it's flowing, it's taking its time, it's definite from a profitability point of view. I've come to realise that despite these models with the moulded ceiling being really nice, they are incredibly technical to insulate, and it does slow things down no end. And I just don't think that I could increase the price of these models because of the amount of work. I think it would be better just to have one of the ones with a flat roof and just put a skylight in, and then you've got the skylight and you can work around it a lot easier. It's not just the skylights, it's all the luggage bits and the fan and everything that has to come off to work around. It's probably going to add another week on to how long it takes me to do this, and as you've seen with the first one, I can actually turn one of these round in a week flat, so doubling that time. This is looking at this from a business venture point of view. Obviously, for you guys that are doing this as a DIY, if you've got one of these already, or even if you really like these, it's well worth the time. A week to week. So yeah, let's get cracking. Okay, so wow, that was a real labour of love, or should I say a real chore. Getting this trim back on with this thick insulation here that doesn't want to compress. That's one of the good things about it, is that it resists compacting. Well, that makes it a nightmare for putting the trim back on. There's still the odd part, like you can see here, where the trim is the insulation is holding the trim from going back fully. So I'm not sure whether to maybe pump that full of stuff it full of cardboard so far in, and then get a seal of beige silicone or something on there to neaten it up, or maybe drill some holes and loop some tie wraps through if I can find some that are a similar-ish colour, and pull it tight that way. It's a minor detail, but it's the kind of detail that bugs me. But basically now all the voids in the micro camper are stuffed full of either Kingspan, recycled bottle insulation, expanding foam, one of those three, and then coated over with the Dodo mat insulation. Obviously all the joins taped up. The ceiling, obviously where there is no voids, as we discussed in one of the other videos, all of this is now coated with the Dodo mat. So there's a 6mm layer on top of that before I've then carpeted it. Anywhere where I could, where there was voids, like in the side here, again, it's pumped full of expanding foam at the front, down the door pillars, at the front of the windscreen. But all this is now, she's got to get in, haven't you? Come on. Should make a big difference to how much the cold temperature from outside is transmitted through, and also how much the heat when the sun is belting down on the van also comes through. I mean, it's obviously it is a giant greenhouse, so the best preventative measure for that kind of thing is to put some form of reflective foil up at the windows in a sunny day. But still, like I've said before, every little thing that you can, you're not going to do this perfect. If you want to live in a completely vapor sealed, fully insulated dwelling, go and get a house or a motor caravan. There's always going to be some kind of compromises. Cars aren't designed to be fully insulated and vapor sealed. But every little measure that you take is better than no measures. And then if you combine that with some airflow, leaving a window open or some sort of ventilation fan on or something, you'll improve the situation. Speaking of fans, so that was one issue that we had. Up in the top here, you'll recall we had this here, which at first I thought maybe was an aircon unit for the rear, like they have in some vehicles. But then upon closer inspection, I quickly realised there's no pipes or anything for any condenser connected to that, so it clearly wasn't aircon. So then I just thought, oh, it must just be a heater. But I later realised, as I took it all apart, that it couldn't be a heater either, because it's not attached to any ducting that comes from the heater matrix from the fan. So what I basically established is that all this was a fan unit, with which the intention is to draw air up that's blown out from the fans in the front of the vehicle up through this void here, where it would then get pulled through the fan and then blown out these vents and directed at the rear passengers. So that might mean that if the aircon was on in the front and the aircon is blowing cold air, it's pulling the cold air in and blowing it out into the back so the rear passengers can get some of it. And the same if the heating's on. Now obviously, since this vehicle's not going to have any rear passengers, I figured what's the point of keeping that? So we've decided to ditch that altogether, which actually now means that there's a good bit more storage up here, even if all that storage is used for is housing the insulative panels. I keep using that word, I don't even know if it is a word, insulative. the insulating panels that I'm going to make for these skylights here, they could all get stashed up there, which is kind of useful. I've still got to put the wooden trim around around these, kind of like an architrave kind of thing, which the panels are going to attach to, and that will neaten up some of these ugly joins where we've got. But I could have done this obviously by stretching out a full length of four-way stretch and trying to fit it all and notch around, cut around the holes. But if you've ever done any four-way stretch carpeting, you'll know that that is much easier said than done, and it's always best to work in small sections if possible. For a start, the Stanley knife, when you're working with this stuff, lasts sharp for about 10 minutes, so cutting around all these windows would have meant changing blades constantly, not to mention how I would have single-handedly stretched that all around. No, would have been a nightmare. So we've done it this way. I've cut small sections for the little bits, and then where we've got these joins, we're going to hide them with some timber detailing, which will then add another little element that will look nice as well. I like to include like natural textures in my vans, so wood grains in particular will be something that will be scattered about the van, on the panels, on the tops, on these mouldings and everything. So yeah, an extra 4 days worth of work really in doing all this lot, but we're now at a point where everything's done. Obviously the sliding doors were also a pain in the butt, getting all the mechanisms to work and everything. What I've done with these is taken off the panel and then wrapped the inside of the panel with the dodo mat before putting it back on, as opposed to doing it the other way, because there's so many holes where the trim tabs come through, door handles, locks, etc. Trying to get the panel on top of the dodo mat on top of the door would have been a nightmare. I've already discovered how much of a nightmare it was with some of the smaller pieces, so we did it slightly separately here. Now of course you've got a slight compromise here before anyone points it out on the videos, and that is there is still bare exposed metalwork here of the door, which is going to transmit cold, unfortunately, but there is not really anything to do with that. It could have got wrapped with dodo mat and then four-way stretched, but you run the risk then of water getting into it, because that will stop the door from shutting against the rubber seal properly. And if it doesn't do that, water gets onto it through the rubber seal, it's then going to pull that inside, which is something I discovered on a minibus that I've recently bought that was professionally fitted out by a coach building company, and basically the way they'd wrapped the windows, long story short, they didn't seal properly, and the water was just being sucked in through the four-way stretch and basically just soaked the entire interior of the van. So we don't want any of that. So what I'm thinking here is that we're going to maybe have a curtain roll, some sort of draft-proof warm curtain that can come down the door, and that is going to stop some of this cold. At the end of the day, yeah, there's bare metal here, but there's also 4 great big gaping windows here, which are also going to transmit the cold through. So yeah, like I say, compromises, you can't win them all. I have literally done the best I can do with insulating this. It's been a real pain, and it has probably put me off doing another one of these with the moulded ceilings again. I think only because it was only so hard because I wanted to put these little gadgety storage bits back up, when in actual fact I could have just taken them down, battened the ceiling, and insulated it and tongue and grooved the ceiling, leaving some reveals for the windows or something, and just not put any of this lot back, and made some of my own what do you call them? These things, sun visors. I don't know. Anyway, and some other form of storage. That actually keeping this has caused a good deal of complications. I'm not sure whether it was really worth it. Anyway, it will be nice and warm, and it should be really nice and quiet in here now, because there's so much of this sounding and stuff. It will be really interesting to see what that's like when you're driving. One thing's for sure, when I shut the doors and everything, it makes a nice thud, as opposed to the French rattle that it used to make before. And I think this beige four-way stretch on the ceiling, combined with the beige plastics, it's got quite a nice look to it. So finally we can get to some fun stuff and get on with some of the joinery, which will probably only take as long as all this layout's taken, to be fair. So I'm hoping this should be ready by next weekend. So let's look forward to that bit. So is it home time, Kaya? Let's go home and watch Predator.
Hey, don't burn me, come on, you're not too hot. That's okay.